friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I have yet another book review to share with you. Today I'm talking about this book, We Are Okay by Nina LeCour, I think is how I say her last name. I came across this book because it was suggested by E. Lockhart, who wrote the book We Were Liars. She's written other books, but she was reposting someone saying if you liked We Were Liars, you would like this. I'm gonna be honest, I remember loving We Were Liars, and I thought it was such a captivating story, and I really like E. Lockhart as an author. I have followed her career with great interest and have read all of the books, pretty sure all of the young adult novels she's published. I have read them and I have enjoyed them all. They're all very different. It's interesting to see such different things from one author, but I don't remember all the specifics, so I might break my rule of not rereading books and I might reread it. But anyways, you came here for this book, so let's go ahead and talk about it. Essentially, the premise of this is it is focused on a first semester freshman at a college in New York. However, she comes from the great state of California. Her name is Marin, I believe, and she went to college under not the greatest of terms. She basically unpromptedly flew to New York right before school was supposed to start with basically the clothes on her body and nothing else. And she showed up in her college dorm and has been there all semester, and she hasn't been doing the greatest. We aren't told at first. It takes you most of the story to figure out what had happened, but there was some tragedy that she experienced. It was sort of like a few tragedies wrapped up in one that really shook her world. And so she immediately left California with the idea of going to New York and starting over. And she basically has. She hasn't spoken to nearly anybody back in California. And she, again, like I mentioned, is not doing great. When the story begins, it is at the end of semester one when all the students are going home for winter break, and she has managed to make an arrangement with the school that will allow her to stay in her college dorm during the entire winter break. She has no intention of going anywhere back to California, leaving the dorm. She has no intention of doing anything. And she really is someone who is socially withdrawn from the world, and it's entirely because of the tragedy she suffered that she has not told anybody about. Even her closest friends in California don't know the full scope of what happened. Speaking of, where the story picks up at the start is Marin is getting ready for one of her old friends who has remained somewhat in contact with her. Very little communication has unfolded, but enough communication for her to be coming the week before Christmas to stay with Marin and kind of see what's going on with her, check in with her. But they haven't seen each other or had a very extensive conversation since she abruptly left and went to New York. This friend's name is Mabel, and they have a complicated friendship. There's more than just friendship mixed in with their relationship. And what I liked a lot about the story and the way it's structured is that we get these moments of flashback. So in present day, you'll have a chapter and then it'll flash us back to pieces of things that lead us to ultimately finding out what the tragedy was that Marin went through. Again, you don't get it until nearly the end of the novel, but as you can see, it's not super thick. I am definitely somebody who doesn't love suspense reading because I oftentimes can't sit down and just plow through a book. I have too many things going on in my everyday. So I struggle to be patient with the amount that I can read each day, and I wanted to read more and more. But this book is really interesting. I definitely would say that it challenged me because I have not experienced the type of grief that Marin has, and it's not because I haven't experienced that circumstance. I haven't experienced tragedy on that level that it has so altered my life. And so there were times where I would feel frustrated with her as a character because she would, be unable to do something simple, or she would struggle to communicate. And I just never been there myself in that way on that dark level. And so it was really good to be exposed to that, and it was really interesting, and the storytelling of it was really powerful. And again, the story is focused on tragedy and grief and dealing with the fallout of both of those things and dealing with how you move on and the ways in which we move on and how everyone responds to things in a very different way. And that's really powerful. And I think that's what makes this book a book that I think everyone should read. I think those topics are really common, and I think, again, in my case, it helps me be more empathetic to people because while I haven't been in those exact shoes feeling that low, I now can understand people who are struggling with that and how I can approach them or how I can support them. And that's one of the reasons why I love books so much, is they can take something that you'll never really fully know perhaps, and it puts you in the brain of that person. And I just thought this was really powerful. So this is a book I'm happy that I have read. I do believe if you liked We Were Liars, you'll like this book, because it deals with tragedy on some level. Even though I don't remember all the specifics of We Were Liars, it does have a similar storytelling nature where you don't know all the things that happened, and it is dealing with grief and tragedy. Those are kind of like the big motifs that I would say are also in this. And if you have read this but you haven't read We Were Liars, I also suggest that book. I could do a whole video on E. Lockhart. I have all of her content. I think it's phenomenal. Like, I think she's a really cool author. I heard her speak once. I'm into her as a human and as a writer. But this book was also great. It was a quick read for me. I read it in like a series of like 5 days. Thought it was pretty good, and I'd be curious to know your thoughts if you've read it, or any other books that maybe are similar to this that you would recommend to me, because I would be curious to try more texts that deal with this particular topic. All right, guys, that is it for me. I'm gonna get out of here and go pick up the current book that I have gotten myself engrossed in. I look forward to chatting with you real soon in my next video.